talk to you all about today, and uh, I was reading the newspaper this morning, and I ran into an article by David Brooks. It's actually an editorial in the New York Times, where he was asking whether or not there's racism in America, or if America is racist, right? And he goes through statistics on how African Americans have been affected by racism and redlining, the lack of education, the whole Jim Crow era, etc. You know, it just goes to numbers that we already know about. And he talks about it in the context of this effort by the Republican Party today to prohibit schools from teaching what racism did to America and to a large percentage of the population. And when he's writing this article, when I'm reading this article, I run into a fact that he cites that I was not aware of. Because he started talking about Hispanics and how we were affected by racism. And this is one of what I read, and I wanted to talk to you about it briefly today, because it's extremely relevant to where we're at in the Rio Grande Valley. He says, Hispanics have lately made outstanding gains in education. In the year 2000, more than 30% of Hispanics dropped out of high school. By 2016, only 10% did. In 1999, a third of Hispanics ages 18 to 24 were in college. Now, nearly half are. Hispanic college enrollment rates surpassed white enrollment rates in 2012. Let me tell you why that's important. Politics in Texas today is a game of inches. We are just right there. In 2016, Hillary Clinton lost the state of Texas by almost 10 percentage points. In 2012, we lost this presidential election by 26 points. In 2020, Joe Biden lost by 5 points. We have cut our margins in half every election cycle in the state of Texas. We are today where Georgia was at in 2016. 2016, Georgia was a 5-point margin in the presidential election. In 2016, there were a 5-point margin. In 2020, they won. They won by somewhere around 20,000 votes. We had an election in 2020 where we needed to pick up 9 state house seats to take over the Texas House. All the polls were showing we were going to win. Not by a little, by a significant margin. That we were going to pick up somewhere between 12 and 14 house seats. That did not happen, and primarily the reason it did not happen was because there was a huge surge of Trump voters that nobody had ever seen before. The Republican Party, we got more money, we raised more money in Texas for all our elections, somewhere about $200 million, something we had never seen in Texas. We thought that with that amount of money and the enthusiasm that we had, we were going to be able to win. The Republican Party saw that they were in danger. They spent close to $400 million in the state of Texas. And they were able to close the gaps that existed in the last couple of weeks. But here's what happened. In the 9 seats that we did not win, we lost them total by around 20,000 votes. 20,000 votes. So what has happened in Texas today, it is a game of inches. Beto O'Rourke in 2018 lost statewide against an incumbent Republican senator by 225,000 votes. Less than 3 percentage points. Mike Collier, with no money, Beto had a lot of money. Mike Collier, with no money, lost against an incumbent Republican lieutenant governor by 4 percentage points. Now let's come back to what I started off our discussion with. Historically, turnout rates among minorities, particularly Mexican Americans, are very low all across the nation, except for California. And the reason that we always give is because turnout rates for poor people and people who have a lower level of education are always low, no matter what the ethnicity is, whatever ethnic group it is. The exception to that rule is blacks, African Americans. And the reason black or African Americans vote at high percentages is because they had a 65-year civil rights movement that was based upon the principle that if the only way to achieve civil rights is if you achieve the right to vote and you participated in the electoral process. So you had a 65-year program in the South where you had organizers come into the South to register, to engage, and to get African American voters to vote. And they do now. African Americans vote at as high and sometimes higher percentage as white people do in the state of Texas, in the United States, including in the state of Texas. The numbers are very high. We have remained very low, Mexican Americans. So we give it, the excuse is, well, we're lower educated, we're poor. Well, I just showed you that the thing on the lower education seems not to apply the way it used to before. That we are educating our kids at higher percentages than we have ever educated them before in the area that counts, which is a college education, which is the group of people that votes at the highest percentage around. So what's happened to the Rio Grande Valley? We have 1.5 million people. Let me say that again. We have 1.5 million people in the Rio Grande Valley. We are the 4th largest metropolitan area in the state of Texas, only behind Harris County, the Harris County metropolitan area, Dallas County metropolitan area, and I believe the San Antonio or Austin metropolitan. I don't remember which of the two. And we're number 4. At election time, Harris County, that has more Mexican Americans than the Rio Grande Valley does, votes among the highest rates in the state of Texas, and they run up the score for us, where we're losing in the rural areas, where we're losing in places in South Texas like Medina County, and where we're losing there, or where we're not delivering the votes in other southern counties. Dallas County turned blue in 2004. Both of these counties are majority minority counties with huge Latino populations. Bexar County, they haven't lost a countywide election in 6 years. Austin County, they run up the score big time. These have large minority populations, but what you have seen there that you don't see here is that the turnout rate for Mexican Americans, particularly in Dallas County and Harris County and Travis County, is huge. The problem we have here in the Rio Grande Valley, that even though our kids are succeeding in college, we're not succeeding in taking the vote out. And the main reason, I believe, and we all understand why, is we're not organized well enough. We've taken for granted that Democrats are going to get elected down here, and so what happens is that the Democratic elected officials that don't have opponents in November don't go out there and pull the vote out with the resources that they have. And so we saw what happened when that happened, this election cycle. Donald Trump, although he didn't win in Hidalgo County and he didn't win in Cameron County, he didn't even win in Starr County, he did better than what he did everywhere else in the state of Texas where you had large Latino population, Mexican American population. Because we did not do what we needed to do, because we have never found the need to do it for some reason. And let me tell you why the need to do it exists here more than anywhere else. Where where do we have the most need to properly fund public education in the state of Texas? Here. We don't have the ability to educate our kids the way we could educate them because we don't have the money, because we don't have the tax base, and as a result, our teachers are suffering without the resources to be able to properly educate our kids, who are the most difficult to educate because of language barriers and poverty. When the COVID crisis hit, where did the highest percentage of people die come from? Here. Why? Because most people in the Rio Grande Valley that are not working at a location that gives them health insurance do not have access to health care. And that is a political decision, by the way, because when Barack Obama passed the Affordable Care Act, he provided health care for 3 groups of people. People who were on Medicaid, the poorest, people who were working and making good money, who could buy through the insurance exchanges at cheaper rates that were subsidized, and then he provided for all the working poor expanded Medicaid. $100 billion over 10 years. Not 100 million, $100 billion over 10 years. Free. Let me say that again. Free for Texas. Except for year 9 and 10, where we were going to have to pay 5%. For political reasons, the Republican Party decided to reject that money. Now, mind you, that's your money. That came out of your taxes. It ended up being sent to California and to New York and to all these other states that accepted it, and your money did not provide access to health care for 1 million people in the state of Texas, many of them who live here who couldn't get access to health care to treat themselves when the virus hit. By the time they had to go to the hospital, they had to wait in line in ambulances outside all these hospitals, and a lot of them died. We suffered. Why? Because we didn't vote. Had we voted in 2018, Beto O'Rourke would have been elected to the U.S. Senate. Mike Collier would have been elected lieutenant governor. That's how close the margin was. So the irony of this whole thing is that even though we're the ones that suffer, we're the ones that have caused a lot of this suffering today because we refuse to participate in the electoral process. And the reason that's happening is not because these people in Nevada don't want to go, because we haven't organized ourselves the way we need to do that. If we are that level of strength in the Democratic Party here today, I get these calls all the time from the New York Times and from the different political magazines and so forth, and they said, looks like the Republican Party has taken over South Texas. And I said, yeah? Well, let me ask you this. Any of these people who live in any of these counties where Donald Trump did well, are any of these elected officials running as a Republican? Well, no. You go to Zapata County where they talk about Trump winning countywide there, ask any one of the county officials whether they're going to run as a Republican next time around. They're not. We're Democrats. Our problem is our folks are not going out to vote. And so that's what this fight's all about. I'm from the Rio Grande Valley. I was born and raised here. I was born in Alamo, Texas, raised in Mission, Texas, and I moved to Brownsville when I got out of law school, or when I came back to the valley, actually. And I was out for 5 years representing migrant farm workers all over the country. And I've been an elected official for a long time. But what has happened here is that we haven't taken this organizational aspect of our party seriously. And I think it's time that we do now, because we could be a major force also. In the old days, during the Democratic primary, we were a major force. We were, because what would happen was in the primary, because that's when our fights occurred, our folks would go vote. And so when you had, Ann Richards running against Jim Maddox or Mark White running against somebody else in the primary, our folks came out and supported one candidate or another, and the candidate that won rewarded our people down here with all sorts of stuff. Well, we don't have those fights anymore because our fights now statewide are in November. And when we are needed the most now is when we haven't delivered. So all I can tell you is this. We can win. We should just like right there. I mean, we raised the party, the Texas Democratic Party raised just by itself $12.5 million this last time I went around. We brought in another $100 million to fund the state house seats. We brought in another $200 million to help fund the congressional seats that we targeted and the U.S. Senate seats. We are viewed as a battleground state today, but we cannot deliver our state until we start doing better in Democratic strongholds like the Rio Grande Valley and West Texas as well. There's a lot of counties to the west that are all voting Democrat, they're just voting low numbers. So my message to you is, let's get it together. We all know this. We all understand what you need to do to fix it. We all know where the obstacles are to that. And so I think, especially, every time we get in trouble, we need to have a woman bail us out, right? That's just the way it works. So what I saved this speech to you, for you, because I know if anybody can get us out of this jam, it's y'all. Y'all are the people who have the strength in our party to be able to organize it well, to get rid of the people that are standing in the way, and to put together a valley-wide organization that is going to deliver the vote. We're there. I remember, you can talk to Cassandra. During the election, we'd say, what can we do to help? There was no ability for her to control anything at this point. And so at this point, we're there. We just need y'all to organize. We will provide you with the backup resources to help you get organized and to train your folks and to do everything necessary to deliver the vote. But it's up to y'all to get it together and to organize. This woman would have won her primary because she barely lost. And would have been a great Supreme Court justice had we been organized. So let me leave you with that. This is our political system to lose. Right? We know what the consequences are for losing. Elections have consequences. And if you care about our community, if you care about the future of our state, then we need to put some work into this. I do this almost full time, and I don't get paid a penny because I care about our community. In fact, I ended up spending thousands of dollars a year just to get somewhere in the state to go talk to people. From here, I'm driving up to Freer to go talk to about 10 Democratic county chairs, all of which are women, by the way, that cover that part of the state. And so let's get it done and work together and turn this state around, make this state a loving state, a state that cares about its people, a state that has a government that reflects the diversity of its population, a state that ensures that all the issues that are important to a quality of life for all of our citizens apply across the state of Texas, especially in our home county. Thank you, and God bless you.